I'm not trying to eliminate the contact. It's trying to eliminate the why customers have to contact us, the need for customers to contact us.
You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. Almost certain you know this brand. As I sat down to write the intro for today's guest, I was listening to this brand. There's a really good chance you're actually listening to this podcast on this brand. My other podcast, a personal video podcast I co-host with my wife called The Loud Quiet, chose this brand as the native host for our show. Almost a third of all global music streamers have a subscription with this brand, over double the share of the second place company. Those impressive brand qualities come to a high level of reality when it's time to provide customer service for those global streamers. Notice I said global streamers, global customers. So not only are you providing customer service for the largest share of customers, you're doing it around the globe. Raising the bar for this global delivery of customer service centers the mission for today's guest, Rajiv Vellodi, Vice President of Customer Service at Spotify. With prior customer service leadership at Hilton and Amazon, Rajiv knows what it takes to deliver customer service at scale, big scale. In addition to pure play customer service leadership, Rajiv also spent over 8 years at GE, a company renowned for execution, a key component to driving customer experience at that large scale I mentioned. Rajiv and I came to know each other when I was consulting for Hilton several years ago. CX Passport travelers already know I'm going to have to ask him some of his travel inside stories. Maybe his fave property will come to light. Rajiv, welcome to CX Passport.
Thanks, Rick. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be good. Hey, Rajiv, I got to ask you the first question. What is on your top Spotify playlist right now? What's filling your ears these days?
It's crazy. I was driving with my daughter the other day. We went out for lunch on Sunday. It was a 40-minute drive. We picked a restaurant quite reasonably far away, and she had done some digging around, and she discovered that Bonnie M's Ma Baker was the top-rated song when her mom was born. So so it's Bonnie M on the top of my playlist right now.
Hey,
but that's great, man.
I like that. Oh, I had never even thought about doing something like that, where I just pick.
That was great, and I'm that's given me a lot of real good insights or ideas on the next how to create my next playlist. Maybe I'll pass it on to some folks here at Spotify. I think that's a neat idea.
Yeah, I like that. So there, listeners, there you go. There's your first little nugget of wisdom there, is use a date that is meaningful to you, and see what that playlist spawns. That'll be fun. Now, Rajiv, back to kind of the business side of Spotify. I think I'd like to just tell listeners a little bit about your role at Spotify. You've got responsibility for global customer service, but what does that actually look like? What does your role and your organization look like day to day?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for the team that supports our customers and end users globally in the countries we operate in. That's a very important qualifier here, because I think you can argue that Spotify is not present in a few countries in the world. So we are truly global, and as I think based on the most recent results that we reported, we are over 500 million active monthly users, which is
oh my gosh, okay,
which is quite a challenge. So this is of course, over 225 million of them actually pay us monthly. So it's it's truly global in nature, and it's very exciting. But I think in addition to the end users, which are obviously an important customer segment, we also support our creators, artists and podcasters on our platform. And then, of course, our ad studio product users. So yes, we are a team, or my team supports the 3 core customer segments or groups at Spotify: the end users, the creators, and the advertisers.
I'm glad you mentioned the creators because while as a listener, I've never had a customer service engagement with Spotify. I did actually when I was getting that personal podcast that I was describing up and running. Uh, Actually had to reach out to customer service as a question that I didn't know was a new product for me. And I'll tell you this, it actually was a really good experience, Rajiv. So
Good.
things went well there. And I'm not just blowing sunshine up your fan. It actually worked and it was really good. So I appreciate that.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I'll let the team know.
Yeah. You're going to go look in the database, Rick Denton, and see. Yeah.
No. As long as you had a good experience, I'm good.
Yeah, well, that's it definitely was. And I talked about some of the brands that you've been a part of. Yeah, you have had some very signature brands in your background. They each tend to have, at least in my mind, a slightly different flavor of customer focus, right? If you think of Hilton, you tend to think about hospitality. If you think about Amazon, it's very digital experience focused. And GE certainly is, everybody thinks about process and business execution. Talk me through how you take those three brands and those three flavors of customer and bring those into how you approach Spotify.
Yeah, I think I'd like to characterize it as slightly differently. I don't think it's three different flavors, but I think um, you know in my mind, I think I've been lucky that the brands that I've been part of, especially in G, you can argue that I was not in a customer end user B2C kind of a role, but especially at Amazon, Hilton, and now here at Spotify, I think I've been really lucky to be part of these three companies where customer service is part of the product of the brand offering, right? When you buy a product from Amazon, or when you stay at a Hilton property, or when you are subscribers to Spotify, or a listener, as the case may be, of Spotify, you are, we are a brand that stands by what we sell, and that includes, the customer service offering as part of the core product. But I think, and I try to look for, instead of the differences, what are the commonalities that make each of those brands successful? And I think, that has definitely shaped my philosophy around customer service. And, and of course, the operating rigor has been developed, I guess, through my experiences with, starting with GE and, maybe City before that, GE, and then through Amazon, Hilton, and now here at Spotify. And I think, the operational muscle is extremely important. You cannot deliver things at scale, till you are a strong operator, and that goes unsaid. But I think, so for me, the product needs to believe that the customer service is part of the offering. And I think that has been a yes in all my experiences. And then I think you need to have a philosophy that you can stand by and that you can actually deliver or build your services around. And I think we have that. And then I think you need to be a very, very strong operator. So I think, when you combine all of the three, then I think you can offer something that customers will like or customers will love. So I think, at the core of our philosophy, and this is kind of my philosophy as well, is, customers would rather be talking to their friends and family, and in our case, experiencing our products, listening to something on Spotify, than talking to customer service. We love talking to them. Don't get me wrong here, right? We love talking to customers, but we would rather not, because we want them to be listening to our products and have an unimpeded experience at that. And I think so from that philosophy, spends our strategy and how we set the execution plans around that, right? So we are focused on effective issue resolution, and then making sure that we're learning from those issues and our resolution to make sure that we are feeding it back to not only improve our processes within CS, but figure out how we can get that back upstream, so that if there are any product changes that are needed, or if there are, any experience changes that might be worth looking at, we can. Can we fix all of them? Probably not immediately anyway. But but we strive, and then it's kind of do that and then repeat it again and over again, and I think it'll stick. So fixing the root cause is kind of the industry norm there, or the term there. But I think it's it has to be part of your DNA. It has to be part of how you operate. It has to be part of your philosophy. And so I like to call it, the eliminate, automate, and we call it it's not too late, so that it rhymes. But it's kind of the service element. So the best contact is one that never was. So you try really hard to eliminate the need for customers to contact us. Again, I'm not trying to eliminate the contact. It's trying to eliminate the why customers have to contact us, the need for customers to contact us. If it is still better for a customer to self-serve or we automate the resolution for them than to talk to another human being. But if we cannot get them in those two buckets, then we make sure that we get them to an advisor as effortlessly, as seamlessly as possible.
Yeah.
And then deliver a great experience there.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
You know what I'm hearing in there? I'm actually hearing, and I do actually appreciate what you said about how, look, I'm looking for the commonalities between all those experiences, right? And the customer at the center and the like. But what I heard in there is, first of all, we have to be operationally sound. Well, okay, GE. Then we want to make sure that we have solutions that are available to the customer without needing human interaction. That's the digital experience I referenced there at Amazon. However, when they do need a human, we want to be available, we want to be hospitable, and we want to be efficient in how we deliver the solution to hospitality of Hilton. So it is interesting, even in your answer, how those three kind of come together. I want to get back to the idea of how do we solve the immediate, how do we solve the long term? Because a lot of that is, how are you treating a contact center? Is it just a cost center? Is it a customer insight center? I want to come back to that, though, because something that continually comes to mind when I talk to brands like Spotify that are so globally visible. An airline is globally visible. Hospitality is globally visible. Spotify clearly is just a visible brand. Are you finding that creates this amplified pressure on driving customer service when the brand is so globally visible? And if so, how are you addressing those pressures having to operate for such a globally visible brand?
Yeah, and I think like being a visible brand and being part of a visible brand at that is a privilege, right? I mean, we've worked really hard, to be in the position that we are in. And trust me, when you are in the market that we are in, to be one of the most visible brands, one of the most loved brands in the world, and so many million customers or users using it on a daily basis or on a monthly basis, is a privilege. And I think I'm picking up on some sports analogy here, right? I think I've heard some I guess broadcasters use the saying, or successful athletes who happen to be broadcasters also say that pressure is a privilege, right? And not everybody is fortunate enough to be in a position to be under pressure. And so when you are in that position, see how you can enjoy it. And I think there are many organizations who out there who would love to be in our position, and so we have then the responsibility to make sure that we are representing the brand in the best possible manner. And I think what really helps us here at Spotify is the culture we have, and I'm not using that term lightly. Collaboration is at the core of it's one of the topmost values that we talk about here at Spotify. And I think one of the best ways to handle or dissipate pressure is when you are together as a team, and when you collaborate effectively, it makes handling pressure that much easier. You're never alone in anything. And Spotify has that culture here where collaboration becomes key. I think that really has been at the core. And I think there is another thing that really helps us, when I say us, the customer service team overall, we don't have to teach people to advocate, to think about customers, right? We've had that in our DNA for a very, very long time. We definitely care a lot about the product that we build, but we spend so much effort really testing out and speaking to customers, doing user research, understanding what customers really want within our product and the consumer organization, that it becomes really easy in that way to make sure that because people are talking about the same thing. People have the customer at the center of what they do. It doesn't mean that you don't have challenges, but at the same time, you talked about pressure specifically, but you don't become successful and very visible as a brand, like you articulated, without being customer focused.
Yeah, and I do. I feel like I've heard that phrase, although it's not resonating in my brain right now. But that idea of pressure is a privilege, and I absolutely can see how that would apply to a brand. When I was thinking about the question initially, I was actually thinking about it at a management layer. I am responsible for, and whatever layer of the hierarchy, right, that exists,
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for a brand and customer service that has such global visibility. And then I realized, though, it's got two layers. It's the management
Mm-hmm.
one and the front line. And we already know that the front line is an incredibly challenging role. It doesn't matter what your brand is. That's a very hard role.
Right.
Along with challenges, there can be some really beautiful moments that happen when that agent co-creates a great experience with a customer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, in that culture, you talk about collaboration. I want to talk a little bit about celebration. How are you elevating and celebrating what goes right with your teams in order to encourage them?
Yeah. I think the frontline advisors are the key, right? I mean, we can spend millions of dollars on self-service products and all of that, and we do. I mean, most brands do, and they have to, and all of
Right.
us do. But I think at the core of it, we, advisors are what, like, you just call, they help create or co-create those beautiful moments, some beautiful moments. But I think my message to my team always has been that let's ensure that we are not focused on creating some beautiful moments, and I think that's the "some" being the qualitative word there, right? Because I think that then delivers. Then that means that you're then focused on or optimized on the wrong thing, because you're then creating a suboptimal experience, because you are creating inconsistency by design. I would rather us offer a consistent, yet effective, customer service experience, than creating some beautiful, co-creating some beautiful moments here and there. And I think, so that you can do that by making sure that you've created an organization where problem resolution and customer satisfaction is at the core, and then you're
Mm.
leveraging process and technology to be able to consistently deliver that, over and over again, across all the geographies that we're doing it. Right, I would rather be in that position than be known for creating some beautiful moments here and there, and then because like it's a classic case where I think I have been guilty also in the past, where we focus excessively on that, and then you had this months of customer delight programs that you would start, and then they end up, at least for me, they have not really ended up anywhere positive, right? I mean, they've not
Right.
allowed you, we've not figured out how to scale those. They cost a lot of money. It
Mhm.
creates a lot of dissonance within the teams, because not everybody's sure how to do it. It creates other unintended consequences. So I would rather us focus on you know um, how do you leverage technology to create a great automation or a self-service experience. um, then if that doesn't work, then get them to an advisor so that they can solve
Yeah.
that problem as quickly as possible. And then make sure that you create a culture where advisors feel that they get empowered to handle that customer as an individual. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, and then create the reward mechanisms around that. We leave that a lot to the frontline, the team, and the teams that actually handle it on the side. We do celebrate and create those celebratory moments, but we don't have the best contact award, or like a delightful customer experience award, or things like that. I think we try to reward consistent performance, and we celebrate that together with the teams.
Rajiv, I'm really fascinated by that. I kicked back and just listened to your answer there. I had so many thoughts that were coming through that this idea of the consistency. I'm thinking as a customer, sure, I like to be delighted, and there's the great stories of surprise and delight. Couple thoughts come to mind. They're all around execution, and the execution a lot of times is around the when I've seen surprise and delight work really well, it's when there was a program behind it. And it was a defined program that had a lasting legacy associated with it. It wasn't just a quick impulse aspect of it. And then as a customer, sometimes surprise and delight, if I see someone else getting surprise and delight, I get kind of pissed off if I'm not. So that
Yeah.
consistency, you're right that I would absolutely want to have that received. And I'm hearing so much of that operational execution and all of that coming through in what you're saying there. I will tell you an area, though, that I actually do like to be surprised and delighted in a very consistent way is in the first class lounge. You, sir, are a very global traveler. I know that. I knew that before your time at Spotify and Hilton and everything else. You know the value of a really, really good lounge. And you and I could probably talk about which are our favorite lounges around the world. But I want to invite you into the CX Passport First Class Lounge today.
Thank you.
We'll move quickly here and hopefully have you're welcome. Welcome in, sir. We'll move quickly here and hopefully have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
I really loved Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And Egypt. I mean, those were both places where I have had teams in the past, and
I see.
And I did take some time. I want to go back there and spend some more time with the family. But I really enjoyed Japan and Egypt, and I think very fortunate, like you said.
Boy, I can tell you that I did not expect you to say those two, although I've been in both of those two and would agree they were absolutely amazing. Egypt for me was unfortunately just a 72-hour business trip. It was still delightful. Japan was a personal trip with the family. Business travel has its challenges, doesn't it? But boy, it can be nice to get exposure to places like Japan and Egypt and the like. I can see why those are great from your past. Going forward, what is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
Yeah, I mean, I have to get to Maldives. That's a place that's on my list. Unfortunately, something or the other happens, and never really, But I do want to make sure that I get there. I've and maybe stay at the flagship Conrad property, I believe there. Yeah. I mean, yeah, or the Waldorf.
That's what I was thinking when you said that.
With the underwater restaurant. Yeah.
Why didn't you go when you were at Hilton? Because I was exactly thinking about that Conrad, which I've never been to, but I've seen. And if it's not whichever one, the luxury brand that is there, I think it was the Conrad that we're thinking of. Oh man, what a great place to have in the future.
I mean, the Conrad at Bora Bora. I mean, I think definitely want to go to Bora Bora as well. I think that's another in the Pacific. Yes, I think that's probably.
But I feel like we're doing a promotion for a Conrad here. Gives a chance for everybody to find.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Great properties, absolutely. Hey, you mentioned the underwater restaurant, and you're like me, I'm sure that travel and food go hand in hand, but just life and food. So what is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
I love eating Thai food. I mean, South Asian food in general is my favorite. Of course, I'm Indian, so you cannot keep me away from Indian food, but I didn't want to mention that. But yeah, of anything non-Indian, I prefer, or I would eat Thai. Vietnamese. That's kind of
I gotta stop doing
Seattle
these
for a long
hungry.
time, which has got some fantastic Asian places to eat at. So
yeah. I really do. I've got to stop doing these when I'm hungry because that just made me sound good. So I'm going to ask the question I always ask, and that is, what is something growing up that you were forced to eat as a kid, but you hated?
Oh, bitter gourd. Have you had that before?
No, but I've heard of it. Oh my gosh. No,
I love it now, but I hated it as a kid.
Yeah.
So it's definitely acquired. It's supposed to be very healthy. I'm sure it is. It is very healthy.
Of course.
But like with all things healthy, they don't taste good. At least as a kid, it tastes horrible. But sometimes as a vegetarian, that's sometimes that's the only thing that's available. So or that's the only thing that's cooked at home for that meal. So I guess you learn to eat it, and then you learn to enjoy it. And I know I do. But
it's good
bitter gourd.
It's good that you've come to that enjoyment. Closing out the lounge with a bit of travel. What is one travel item, not including your phone, not including your passport, that you will not leave home without?
It used to be my Kindle. Nowadays, I think it's my walking shoes. But I think both my Kindle and my walking shoes, I think I'm probably a little bit more disciplined than when I last met you, Rick.
Rajiv, something that's making me laugh about this question is I've had several guests in the recent past talk about their shoes or their athletic gear or that. I think a lot of folks are realizing that one, it's a great way to explore a city, and two, well, when you travel that much, you got to do something because otherwise, good gravy, our health just goes to crap if we're traveling and
Yeah,
not
yeah, exactly.
exercising.
Yeah, and you had I asked a food question earlier, so that doesn't help.
Yes, that's right. You got to get it all in there. All right, let's talk about that scale of
Hmm.
customer service, right? When you're delivering that customer service at that global scale, it is really rare to see it delivered completely in-house.
Hmm.
You, like many brands, rely on BPO partners. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy around using BPOs. Why would you do it? And how does that BPO become a unified part of your brand's delivery of customer service?
Yeah, I think uh, tied to our philosophy is to make sure that you're offering a world class customer service experience to our customers, and you do that um, uh, in a model that works for your organization, right? So I'm not here to preach one model versus another. I think every organization is different, and we are. Um, so the BPOs we work with are specialists in delivering customer service as
Mhm.
as a service offering of theirs, or a product area, if you will. And so so when you're trying to go after buying a product or service from the market, you go and find the best that is out there that meets your needs. And I think that's
Mhm.
kind of the philosophy that we've used. Of course, it needs to be cost effective, but I think the days of pure cost arbitrage are more or less over. I think we are a truly global company, like I just
Mhm.
told you, right? And so we are truly in this business, or in engaging BPO partners, because we want to make sure that we have access to the global talent out there, which represents our customer base.
Yeah.
And and we are, and of course, if it doesn't align with my cost structure, we won't use them. That's a given. But
Right.
but I think all those things being the same, I think it makes sense for us to go and get the best talent out there that is representative of our customer base as well. So for example, we are in, Latin America is a very important market for us, and we have a strong presence in that region of the world. We have a strong presence in Southeast Asia. We have a strong presence in India. We have a strong presence in Europe. So we're truly
Mhm.
global in that sense. And it really helps that we are able to we have access to that talent. And I think the BPO service providers that we use are the conduit for us to be able to do that. I think, what
You
was
know,
the other part of your question? How does a brand
well,
come together, right?
yeah, how do you unify them? Because and I want to add, let me stop down on something that you said there that really resonated with me, and then let's go to that second part. I like what you said that you're leveraging the BPOs to help be representative of your customer base. And it's not just about sure, yeah, cost arbitrage or time zone arbitrage or
Yeah,
any of those kind
exactly.
of things. It is also how can we make sure that okay, if Spotify hasn't employed somebody in this particular region, how are we able to then access our partners to have someone who contacts in to get that hospitable service from someone that is from their culture, their language, their style of living. And so I like that flavor around the BPO. That second question is then how do you unify both the in-house and the BPO in a consistent delivery of great customer experience?
Yeah, I think it's important that you find somebody, or when you evaluate, or when you're evaluating evaluating partners. I think you are trying to find somebody who aligns with your customer, with your culture and philosophy, right? So
Mhm.
of course, I'm not because individually these companies have their own, they have to, right? They have their own identity,
Right.
they have their own culture. But you want to make sure that when they represent Spotify, that for them, aligning with the Spotify brand and values is not difficult. So you're trying to find partners, and there are ways to do it. Of course, you learn over a period of time, but then you also learn. You also, when you evaluate, you look for things. How do they think about their people? How do they look at growth for their talent? How do they reward? There are many things that you can evaluate people on, and of course, their track record of delivery, etc., etc. But
Right.
I think it's important that you are aligned in terms of the values that they stand for, and do that. And once you have evaluated, and you've decided to bring them on, then be very clear how you're bringing them on and how you're engaging them. Are you engaging them as a transactional vendor, or are you engaging them as a partner? As in, so when they sit at your operating table, are they, or operating table sounds bad, but when they're at the table discussing operations, that they are an operations partner who know what they're doing. They're an equal.
Right.
They, when they say something, you better be ready to listen. And I think that is important. And unless you do that, then there is nothing wrong in treating them as a transactional vendor. And for a lot of companies that works well also, but doesn't work for us here in the way we do business here at Spotify with our partners. So I think you are paying them for an excellent in a particular area, like I just articulated. You went there and you evaluated the best customer service players or delivering customer service players out there. Once you've got them on there, then give them that respect, right? And treat them as equals, and then make sure that you also had, like I talked about visiting Philippines or visiting the sites. I love to do that. I think you need to show them that you're invested in the relationship. Right. It's not just about, sitting somewhere in New York and calling them over for, an annual conference. Where you do a business review. I think it's about showing that you actually care, representing Spotify with the teams on the ground. So not just spending time at the different levels of leadership. That is important. You need to engage at an executive level as well, but making sure that when you are there, you are spending time with the front line, with the managers who manage the front line or who lead the front line. And I think you get a lot, from those visits, and they, I think, appreciate it a lot as well. Right, because you are out there. These are the people who are talking to your customers, and if you show that you care, you will get that reciprocity in how they treat you. So
there's an extension to the statement of, you can't create a better customer experience than what you provide an employee experience. Well, if these are maybe not technically employees, but still an extension of an employee delivery of your brand, how you're treating them helps translate into a great customer experience. Rajiv, my gosh, I looked at the clock. We are, actually at or approaching overtime. However, I promised that I wanted to ask you about something. And so I'm going to just close out with this. And It's because I love the contact center. It's one of my favorite topics for CX Passport, because that's what I think is the treasure trove for companies to know how to deliver better customer experience. Nobody knows the customer better. And you talked about taking those insights and translating it into actual action. So I'm curious, how do you go about doing that? How are you tactically sharing these learnings from the customer service team, that epicenter of customer experience creation, with the rest of Spotify? In a way of saying it, how is the contact center becoming the customer insight center for Spotify?
Yeah, great question, Rick. I think it's an area that I'm very, very passionate about. We've talked about this when you and I worked together many years ago. And unlike Hilton, Spotify is a 100% digital platform. So the only place where customers are talking to you, as human beings, or when are interacting with you in a human to human interaction, is when they're talking to customer service. And 95% of the time, it's because they've had a problem. Right. And unlike a retail store or a hotel where, before the customer walks out, there is still an opportunity to correct something. You don't have that, right? So something has already gone wrong and you have that. So I think that puts tremendous responsibility on the customer service team and the customer service organization to be that customer advocate and the voice of the customer with the rest of the company. And I think one of the things that we have done, at least here at Spotify, we've made some conscious efforts to build a program around it. So when I came here about 4 years ago, we put the plan together, asked for investment, and we've invested in that team. We hired a senior leader from outside to help us establish that team here, alongside some technology resources as well. So we've made some progress there in terms of, getting at least insights organized in a way that it can be shared. I mean, that's the most important thing, because people have important work to do, right? It's not like they are, and especially for a company like ours, we have enough and more data, trust me, right? So so when you are actually introducing something else, you better be sure that it is going to be useful. So I think that's where the challenge is for us and has been. So I think, and in addition, before I forget, we have a very vibrant and thriving Spotify's customer service community where there are, I don't want to get into stats, but there are a lot of users who actually come in and talk to each other, and users help other users, and we facilitate and we moderate. We get a ton of information, ton of insights from there that we can feed back, and we do. So we have that mechanism as well. But I think I'm not entirely happy with where we are right now. I think there's tons of work that's still in front of us. I think we're very happy with some of the progress that we've made in some areas that I talked about, where we eliminate the root cause, etc. So I think that has really helped. That I think is another way in which you can use insights, to solve things at the root cause and improve customer experience. So I think that's something that that we've been successful at. But I think there is still some work to be done in truly being, in truly advocating at scale, like I like to call it.
Rajiv, I would prefer that you answered it that way. Because I have a really healthy skepticism when I hear from folks that, well, here's how we've solved it. Oh, really? There's always something new to learn. And the fact that you're on that journey and recognize that journey, and the fact that you've established processes for now to absorb that information and share that information in a way that acknowledges that, hey, people are busy. And so there's a way to communicate that to them. But Rajiv, this was really enjoyable. I had a good time talking with you. I always enjoy just catching up with you in general. However, it was really nice to get a little deeper into what your role is there at Spotify. I certainly appreciated kind of the weaving together of your experience, the different flavors of it and the commonalities and what that experience was like. Your conversation around that visibility of the brand, that's something that for these highly visible brands, there's an intensity there it was interesting to hear how you approach that. And look, let's be honest. I think perhaps an incredibly enjoyable part of this for me was just knowing about what's top of your Spotify playlist right now and how you went about figuring out what that top item is.
Yeah, on that topic, before we close, I think I'd be remiss if you have not. I would ask you to go and try out the day list, which we just launched recently. So
okay,
it's kind of this one of a kind playlist within Spotify that picks up on things that you have listened to during certain times of the day, or your moods, and then we try to offer you something called
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, try that out.
You called it the day list. All right. I know I've been using DJ quite a bit, and I've been enjoying that. Yeah, that's been kind of fun. Day list. And then I found myself actually getting really tired of music. And so I've really come to appreciate the new Friday stuff and just give me something new in a genre that I don't even know. For some reason, there's a lot of Spanish language music that's being fed my way, and I'm actually really enjoying it. And I don't know why. And it bothers me that Spotify knows more about my enjoyment than I actually planned going into, but it was still brilliant. So yes, excellent. There's a lot to love about the brand and the customer service that you are responsible for providing for the entire brand. It's been a treat, Rajiv. Thank you for being on CX Passport.
Thank you again, Rick. Thanks. It was wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me. I genuinely appreciated the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.